o'clock.
Just wait a few more minutes, see if we get anyone else to pop on. Feel free to chime in, say hello. It's going to be a very informal session today. I'm going to leave it open so you can ask questions and add any comments that you might have. Thanks for being here today, Christian. Welcome, Emily. Nice to have you. How are you guys doing this evening? Anyone?
I spoke.
Oh, I didn't hear anything.
Oh, I'm good.
Oh, wonderful. Glad to hear it.
Thank you.
I think Emily is muted. Oh, there she is.
Now?
I can hear you now.
But can you see me?
Yeah.
You can? I can't get you up onto a big screen. This is hard on the phone.
Try swiping left or right. Now I can't see you. Now I can see you.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Yay.
Looks like you have a nice shirt on there. It's a good one. I like it. Hi, how are you?
Great. We're having a great time.
Good.
We wanted to have the big trip.
Yeah. Well, so today I'm just going to talk a little bit about Peru, all the different things that are available there, the different destinations you can go to, some background information, and just a few housekeeping things. First, I want to let you guys know that I am recording the webinar to use on my website with my blog. So this will be posted up there probably next week sometime with the post that I'm going to do about Peru. Also, it's going to be really informal. So if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me. I'm not going to be really looking at the chat box. So if there's anything you want to ask, go ahead and interrupt. And then finally, little fun trivia we're going to do here. On all the slides, I've used almost all of my own photos. There's only 2 slides that don't have photos from my own personal trip. So if you can figure out what the 2 slides are that don't have my photos in them, I'll send you a little gift. So at the end of the webinar, I'll see who can figure out which 2 slides don't have my photos on there. So.
All right.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started and delve into Peru. First, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Brittany McNamara with Be Out Exploring. I'm a travel advisor specializing in nature-based travel to Latin America, Hawaii, the Caribbean, and on expedition cruises. I help solo travelers, couples, families, groups of all sizes with planning and booking a custom itinerary that's unique to them. I also share additional travel information, tips and tricks on my website, beoutexploring.com, and also on my Facebook page, which you can find as Be Out Exploring. So first, some basics about Peru. If you didn't know, Peru is located in South America. We'll keep it really simple. It's also the 3rd largest country, second to, or third to, I should say, Argentina and Brazil. It is surrounded by Ecuador, Colombia, Brazil, Bolivia, and Chile. So it's surrounded by all of those countries. And its current population is about 31.5 million people. So, I mean, that's kind of relatively small in the grand scheme of things, and especially for being the 3rd largest country. But because of the geography, these communities are very spread out and much smaller. So The official language there is Spanish, but really cool fact, there's actually 47 indigenous languages to Peru because of all of those small, tiny communities that they have there. So one that you might hear of if you visit is called Quechua, and that can be found in like the Cusco Sacred Valley region. And when Chris, my husband, and I went on our trip to Peru, we actually had a tour guide who knew a little bit of Quechua. So it was really cool and a really fun little unique fact about Peru. Peru also has 12 UNESCO World Heritage Sites and one of the new 7 wonders of the world. Does anybody know what that world wonder is?
Machu
Machu
Picchu.
Picchu.
Yes, very good. It is Machu Picchu. The official currency is the sol. Usually there's a pretty good exchange rate for Americans. You get a pretty good bang for your buck when you're traveling to Peru. But of course, that's going to vary depending on the economy and the current situation in the world. So just depends on when you're going. Also important to know that since Peru is in the southern hemisphere, the seasons are actually opposite to what they are in the US. So when it's summer here in the US, it's actually winter down in Peru. That's really important for when you're planning your trip because you're going to want to go during different seasons depending on what you're going to see there. So when you're planning your trip, make sure you're going during the right time of year, or when you're working with your travel agent, make sure that they've got you going during the perfect season for whatever it is that you're going to be doing there. First up, we're going to talk a little bit about Lima because most likely that's where you're going to be landing. You'll be landing at the Lima International Airport on your flight from the US. Pretty much all flights come in through Lima except for other flights that might be from South America. So you might be able to get a flight from Colombia to Cusco, but otherwise pretty much everyone else is coming in through Lima. This is a pretty big city, so Chris and I haven't really spent much time there. The 2 times that we've been to Peru, I think we've spent a total of maybe 48 hours. On our first trip, we just hopped on another flight to get to where we were going. Our first flight was delayed, so we literally just like got off the plane, went through customs and immigration, and ran to our next flight. And then the next time we spent like a full day there before we were heading on to our next spot. But Lima is actually well known now for its gastronomy. It's becoming a big culinary place to visit. There's actually 2 restaurants in the city of Lima that are in the list of top 10 restaurants in the world. So the last list that came out of the 50 best restaurants in the world was in 2019. They didn't do a 2020 list because of the pandemic. So that 2019 list has 2 restaurants in Lima in the top 10 restaurants, which is really like incredible. There's no other country in the world that has that many restaurants in the top 10, let alone any. So that's pretty impressive. So anybody that's a big foodie, they definitely want to head to Lima and check out those restaurants and some other there's like food tours that you can do there, lots of great restaurants. There's also a historical center worthwhile checking out, museums and things there. It's also a great place to do day trips from. So if you're into city cultural type scene, then Lima's a great place for that.
How is Lima's altitude?
It's not that high because it's really not up in the Andes yet. You know, it's still right on the coast. So, you know, people actually go surfing right in Lima, paraglide along the coast there. So it's not too high up. Next spot we're going to talk about is Wakachina. So this is a really cool place to visit in Peru. It's actually a desert oasis. So there's a little lagoon there, and then it's surrounded basically by sand dunes, like giant, huge sand dunes. Wakachina is definitely a tourist destination. I don't think any locals live there at all. They just take the bus in from about like 5 miles away. There's another town where they all live. So it's just like accommodations, restaurants, and then of course tour operators. So most people come here to do dune buggy rides and go sandboarding. When we went here, we stopped through on a little tour that we did, and Chris was really excited. He was ready to go do the dune buggy and the sandboarding, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're gonna, you know, break a leg. There's no way I can go sandboarding. I don't do any type of boarding at all. We're gonna get there, we're not gonna be able to do the rest of our trip. But Chris was all into it. He's telling me how great it's going to be. So I was like, all right, let's go do this. And it ended up being a ton of fun. So we went on our tour around sunset, and it was just gorgeous. I mean, these sand dunes are incredible. At one point in time, we were just completely surrounded on all sides by sand dunes. I imagine you'd have like a similar experience if you've ever been to white sand dunes in New Mexico, or Sand Dunes National Park here in Colorado. But it was just awesome. And as for the sandboarding, the boards are really old and used, and so you don't really do any stand-up sandboarding on these boards. What they have you do instead is you lay down on your stomach on the board, and that's how you go down the hill. So you get pretty banged up and bruised because you end up flying down these dunes. I had all these bruises on my pelvis after we were done boarding, but it was a lot of fun. And for those people that are boarders, maybe they do snowboarding, there are tour companies that offer good quality gear, so you can do some stand-up boarding in the dunes there. So really awesome, unique place. Yeah.
How far is Wakachina from Lima?
I think just like a couple of hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours away. I think it's not too far, but it's a nice place to stop and do like one night overnight there before heading on to your next destination.
Okay.
Next on the list is Paracas. So Paracas is a small coastal town. Usually people are there for fishing, but it's also a great place to go if you're interested in seeing the Ballestas Islands, which are also known as the poor man's Galapagos. So again, this is another spot that Chris had done more research on than I had when we visited, and he's all excited, tells me all about how we're going to this poor man's Galapagos. And I'm like, what the heck are we going to see here? Like, what is this? I just imagined like going to these islands and there's like 4 birds on it or something, like poor man's Galapagos. Like, this has got to be terrible. But again, I was like, okay, Chris really wants to do this. Let's go and see it. It's not that big of a deal. If it doesn't end up being good, we'll just go check it out. So we get on this boat ride out to these islands, and I start to see like little black specks. You know how if you're like staring at a light for too long or watching a screen too much, you start to see like little black specks in your eyes. So I'm like, what is going on with my eyes? Like, I'm starting to see this black stuff. So I try to like look away and focus on something else, and then look at the sky again, and they're still there. And then I finally realized that all of those little black specks were birds. Hundreds, if not thousands of birds. It was incredible. I've never seen so many birds at once in my life. And when we finally got to the islands, there were swarms of birds just covering the island. It looked like it was black and white. There were so many birds on these islands. So pretty much all of them look like this, like it does here in this picture with the rocks. They're kind of reddish and brown. So just imagine, instead of it looking like that, it looks black and white because of all of the birds. So we also got to see sea lions while we were there, lounging away on the rocks, you know, lazing away. And then when you're on your way back, you actually get to see one of the geoglyphs, or the Nazca lines, in one of the kind of like dunes that are on the side. It's carved into one of the dunes there. It's a big candelabra. So if you don't have time or don't want to go out of your way to see the actual Nazca lines, which we'll talk about more in a minute, you can actually see one of these geoglyphs on your tour to the Ballestas Islands. So kind of cool that you get to add that in.
Brittany, we're
yeah.
trouble seeing your pictures you're putting up. We haven't seen any yet. I wonder.
You might have to switch the view from seeing my picture to the slideshow.
Swipe.
Swipe it?
I think
Yeah.
swipe. Right? Swipe?
Swipe.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh, so we only have you on a little picture, but now it's
Yeah. Yeah, there it is.
Paracas.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So one other thing that you'd want to see when you go to Paracas is Paracas National Reserve. Beautiful, gorgeous landscapes there with like red sand beaches and bluish green water, cliffs to see, and then there's more dunes there as well. So usually if you're doing like a tour through this region, the tour will include like a short trip through the reserve there, and that's really about all that you need to see like the highlights of the area, but it is gorgeous.
Do you know what kind of birds you were seeing?
So there are like a lot of different birds there. Sometimes you can see penguins.
Oh,
Chris,
wow.
was it frigate birds that
Frigate
we saw?
birds.
Yeah, lots of frigate birds. And I
Wow.
guess sometimes there's flamingos there. There were not when we were there.
That's neat. Thank you.
Yeah. So now for the Nazca lines. If you don't know what they are, they're basically these big, huge images that were carved into the crusty desert in this region of Peru. So they're called geoglyphs. And nobody has any idea why or how these geoglyphs were created. And you really can only see them in their fullest extent from the sky. So the best way to see these geoglyphs or the Nazca lines is from like a plane tour that they do over the region. And then you would be able to see like a hummingbird, monkey, there's a spider. So there's all of these different geoglyphs that are massive that you can see from a plane. You can also see them from a viewing tower that's located along a major highway that runs through the area, which is not the best for the geoglyphs because some of them are starting to fade away due to the traffic coming through there and like dust and things flying. But you can climb to the top of this tower. It's pretty cheap, really inexpensive, and get a little bit of a view of the lines. You can't even see like the entire geoglyph that's there, but you can kind of get a sense of it and see a little bit of it if you don't want to go out of your way to do the flight or pay for a flight, because that can get expensive.
Wow. Cool.
Next, we have Arequipa and the Colca Canyon. So Arequipa is surrounded by 3 volcanoes, and it's often referred to as the White City because they use the white volcanic stone from the volcanoes to build some of the buildings that are in the city. So a lot of the historical center is built with these volcanic stones, and that's why it's called the White City. So when you go there, you want to see the historic city, the historic part of the city, and some of the museums that are there. And then also the Santa Catalina convent is really, really gorgeous. It is not white at all. Very colorful, oranges and blues. There's gorgeous flowers and trees in there. And some nuns still use the convent, so they are in an area of the convent that the general public can't go, but everybody else can see the rest of it. They have some historical plaques up and some stuff set up in there with like beds and things to show you how the convent had been used back in the day. So definitely worthwhile stopping and walking around there. It's massive and just gorgeous. But most people are coming to Arequipa to do like a 2 or 3 day trip to the Colca Canyon, which is one of the deepest canyons in the world and one of the best places to see the Andean condor, which is massive. These birds are huge. So it's one of the best places to go and see that, and that's why a lot of people go there. Some people also go on trekking trips that will take you down into the canyon and then back up and out again. So that is for some serious adventurers who really like to be physically active on their trips, but it's really cool to go because they also have hot springs that you can enjoy down in there and just a unique experience. So that's another reason to visit Arequipa. Now we have Puno and Lake Titicaca. So if you want to visit Lake Titicaca, you're basically going to head to Puno in Peru to visit it. Otherwise, you can see it from Bolivia, which a lot of people say seeing it from the Bolivian side is a little bit nicer. But if you don't have the time or the energy to go to Bolivia, then you can go to Puno. Bolivia can be challenging because of the strikes that they have there, so transportation can be really difficult. Chris and I actually met a guy who was trying to get from Bolivia into Peru for about 3 days, I think, and because of the strikes, he couldn't get across the border. So it can be very challenging to get around there. So your best bet is to see it from Puno. And the reason that you would even want to see Lake Titicaca is because it is the highest navigable lake in the world at just under 12,500 feet.
Wow.
It's also really cool because in the Puno region, they have what's called the Uros Islands. And these islands are built from reeds that grow along the shoreline in that area. So it's not like the reeds have built up over time and these islands were created. They're actually man-made from the reeds to float out on the water. It's really incredible and kind of interesting to like walk around on these reed islands that feel kind of mushy when you step on them, but they're solid. I mean, they're living out on these islands. So the women there will make handicrafts to sell at the market. And then they also make these traditional boats like the one pictured out of the reeds as well. So the part of the boat that's like down on the water is actually all made of reeds. And they used to use these boats for fishing, but now they have like motorized boats and things that they just use. But you can visit those islands as well, so that's kind of cool. Now this is one of my favorite places to go in Peru, the Amazon rainforest. So I went to the Amazon rainforest for my first trip to Peru. Chris and I just went for a week and spent the entire week in the Amazon rainforest in a lodge that was like deep, deep into the jungle. And oh, I heard somebody's phone go off. It was a really important trip for both of us. Chris was really excited to go. He'd always wanted to go there. And I had just always had an interest in the Amazon. From the time I had been in third grade, I remember sitting in class and watching a whole entire movie on the Amazon rainforest and the Amazon River and just thinking that it was so incredible and so amazing. So we decided to go. And one of the really awesome things about it was when we took our boat ride to the lodge. So from the city where the dock is, where you grab your boat to go to the lodge, it takes 3 hours to get upriver to where the lodge is located. So we got on our boat and we're leaving the dock and the little waterway where the dock was. And we get out on the river and we turn right. And the guide tells the boat driver to turn off the engine and stop the boat. And the guide looks around at all of us and he says, you're here, you made it. This is the Amazon River. And it was just his delivery, the way he said it, and, you know, to be there and be like, oh my gosh, I'm on the Amazon River was just an incredible experience to have. So I would highly recommend a trip to the Amazon rainforest if you're into wildlife and nature and animals. It's just fantastic. And the best way to experience the Amazon rainforest is through 2 cities. You either go to Iquitos, which is in northern Peru and very remote and isolated. That's where Chris and I went. And the only way to get there is by boat or by plane. So for tourists, you're gonna take a plane. There's literally no road that goes there. It's completely cut off. So you fly into Iquitos and then you'll take like a longer boat ride to get to your lodge. So it's a little bit more remote and you'll have more of an authentic experience because so few people are going there. The alternative is Puerto Maldonado, which is in southern Peru and closer to Cusco and the Sacred Valley and Machu Picchu. So it's a lot easier to add in like a couple days in the rainforest and a couple of days in the Sacred Valley. If it's something you want to combine all into one trip, that's the best way to go. However, the Amazon rainforest the Amazon River, excuse me, does not run through Puerto Maldonado. It's just some tributaries. So if you really want to get on the Amazon River, then you got to get up to Iquitos and that region of the Amazon rainforest. Next, we have Cusco, which is the historic capital of Peru and basically was the main hub for the Incan Empire. So the streets in Cusco were originally built by the Incans. A lot of it's been changed since then, but there's also a lot of history. There are archaeological sites, museums, all right in this city. And it's this big city up in the mountains, right near the Sacred Valley, and where you'll head into to go on to any trip to Machu Picchu. Pretty much every traveler comes in through here to do anything remotely related to the Incas. It's a great place to base yourself if you're going to do day trips through the Sacred Valley, or if you're going to be doing some trekking on like the Inca Trail or some of the other trails in the region. This will be your starting point, and then you'll head out from there. Lots of great history. There's an awesome market here where you can really see how the locals live and get a sense for what it's like to be part of Peru and part of the culture here. And last but not least, we have Machu Picchu, which, as Emily and Karen pointed out, is one of the 7 new wonders of the world. And as such, it is very, very popular and very busy. So the Peruvian government, in an effort to protect the site and kind of minimize the impact that tourism was having on the site, they have put in some regulations in place. So in order to visit Machu Picchu, you have to be booking tickets in advance, and you have to pick a select time to visit the site. So you're either going to go in the morning or in the afternoon. Additionally, you have to go into Machu Picchu with a guide. So you can get a guide right outside the entrance to Machu Picchu, or you can book that in advance as well. Usually that'll come as a package where you have your guide, and then they'll also include admission to Machu Picchu itself. And they've also limited the pathways that you can use in the site. So, you know, it's not as open that way to help with protecting the structure that's there and minimize, again, the impact from humans on the site. So when Chris and I went, it really wasn't too bad. You could still walk around a lot of places. You didn't feel super restricted. It wasn't like one little loop around the site. You could still walk into buildings and go to different spots. So it didn't really feel too limited. And also another fun fact for you, although Machu Picchu does sit on top of a mountain, it's actually lower in elevation than Cusco is. So if you're heading from Cusco to Machu Picchu, you're actually going down in elevation to get there. So Cusco sits at a little over 11,000 feet, and Machu Picchu is just at 7,700. So it's like 3,000 feet difference. That's a pretty big change. So you shouldn't have too much difficulty going from Cusco to Machu Picchu as far as that elevation gain goes, because you're losing elevation. So who is Peru perfect for? Well, as you can see, they basically have something for everyone. You know, history buffs will just love all of the museums and archaeological sites that they can visit. Nature and wildlife lovers can go to the Amazon rainforest or Paracas, to the poor man's Galapagos, and check out the varied landscapes that are here. You know, we saw sand dunes, mountains, coastal region, forests, so there's a lot to see. Hikers with all of the different multi-day trekking routes that there are, or just day hikes. I can't imagine that a hiker would be unhappy with what they'd be able to hike in Peru. And then one of the big ones is groups. And the reason groups are big is because the tourism infrastructure, my goodness, in Peru is really great. So they are ready and prepared for tourists, whether you're on a budget or you're looking to spend all of your money on a luxurious lodge. They have everything and anything in between to suit every type of traveler. Plus, you know, the people that work in the industry, a lot of them know at least a little bit of English. So if you're not fluent in Spanish or you don't know much Spanish at all, you should be able to communicate with them. Though I always suggest that if you're going to go to a foreign country where you don't know the language, it is a good idea to at least know some words there so you can get assistance if you need it. And along those lines, because of that great tourism infrastructure, this is also a perfect destination for newer travelers. So for somebody who maybe has been to Mexico or Costa Rica, destinations that really tailor to American tourists, but now they want to experience something very different from American culture. They want to, you know, see something entirely different. Peru's a great point for, you know, great destination for them to go to because it is very unique, but it also does have that infrastructure there for them to get around easily or be able to communicate with people easily and not have to worry too much about what they have to do there. So these are just, and also foodies. I have to mention foodies because the food in Peru, like I said, is incredible. From Lima all the way to Cusco, you can have some really interesting dishes. If you're a little adventurous, you can try alpaca, you could eat guinea pig. The ceviche in Lima is delicious, just incredible. So lots of different cuisine to try here, lots of great flavors. There's also a strong Asian influence in Peru. So they have a lot of like Asian food there as well, which is really interesting. But it's really the perfect country for any type of traveler. And finally, I just wanted to touch on the women's trekking trip that I'm organizing for next August of 2021. As I said, it's women only. Sorry, Christian, you can't come. but it's going to be excellent because we're all going to be able to empower each other. We're going to have that sisterhood going strong. And also one of the perks of the trip is that we'll have some free fitness classes. They'll be offered virtually by a women's fitness studio. So she's going to have those classes for us in advance of the trip to help us get ready and get prepared for our trekking. We'll do about 3 days of trekking with 2 nights on the trail. We'll have a day in Machu Picchu, have some time to explore the Sacred Valley and Cusco as well. So it should be a lot of fun. If you know of anyone who would be interested, please have them contact me so I can give them some more information, answer any questions that they might have. Otherwise, that wraps up my presentation for today. If you guys have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. Or if you have any stories from your own experiences in Peru, I'd love to hear from you about that as well.
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
I would like to know, out of all those locations that you mentioned to visit in Peru, are any closer to Cusco and the Machu Picchu area to add possibly a day or 2 if you were specifically going to Machu Picchu?
Well, there's a lot of different stuff you could do in the Sacred Valley. So, I mean, you could probably fill a week's worth of activities just in the Sacred Valley alone. Honestly, there's salt mines to see. You could do rafting, hiking. You could go to the Rainbow Mountain. There's all these Incan sites, archaeological sites in the area to check out. So you could really fill a lot of your time just there alone.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, it's very interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So then I guess I'll ask if anybody has any idea which slides did not feature my own photos.
I have a
Nazca lines.
the Nazca lines
Yeah?
and Machu Picchu.
Incorrect.
Oh,
Any other guesses?
Nazca lines is one of them.
Oh, the one that she didn't see?
Yeah, the ones
Yeah.
that she didn't provide the photo for. I know Nazca lines is one of them. I know it is.
It was in the White Village, but you said the convent was like pink and red.
Okay.
That picture?
One more guess for the other
Okay.
one?
What, the Nazca
You
lines?
said that.
No, you have to tell her that.
Oh, the Nazca lines.
No,
With
those
the
are
aerial
both
view.
those are both incorrect.
Yeah,
Nazca lines is not one of her pictures. I didn't realize that.
we don't know.
Well, it's this photo right here.
What photo?
This one I did not take, and then I think you guys actually missed it. It is the photo for Lima. I don't know if you saw this slide at the beginning.
Oh, well, we missed
yeah,
that
we
one.
missed that one. Oh, well.
Well, for being good sports, I will send you the gift for today. So I will catch up with you after the presentation to get an address, and I'll send you a little gift.
Okay. That's a lot of, I really am interested in that, the snowboarding and the dunes. Is that really far from Cusco? Is it possible to go
Yeah.
there first before heading to Cusco?
If you had some extra time in Lima, you could probably, I think there are tours that do a day trip down there, but I would have to double check. But I'm pretty sure you could do a day trip from Lima.
Okay, we might be contacting you about that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Christian, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think you can. It's about 4 hours away, so.
Well, you could do an overnight there, then I guess would probably be the easiest option.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Christian, did you have anything?
I have an experience in Peru.
Oh, why don't you share it with us?
Well, on the Amazon, we were looking for a trail, and we found a trail, and on this trail we found grubs about this big.
Oh, no.
So when in Peru, eat
No.
the grubs.
Oh.
You don't have to eat grubs, though.
Oh, we're not.
There's
believe you
plenty
me.
of normal cuisine to eat there as well.
They're
We
very
won't be eating
tasty.
grubs. Thank you very much, Christian, for sharing that experience.
Anytime.
Well, thank you for joining me today, and I hope you
Thank you.
enjoyed the presentation. And feel free to email me at contact@beoutexploring.com with any questions or if you'd like assistance with planning any trips in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for coming.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.